everyone. Welcome to our last Q&A session we have with Dr. Seung-ho Lee. Thank you again, Dr. Lee, for joining in for our final Q&A session. So the first question that we have for you is, it seems like the final battle of communism will be played out in China. From your perspective, is the order of ending communism go from North Korea, then to Russia, and lastly China?
Yes, this is a great question. You know, pinpointing an important aspects of my presentation last time. So yes, it's sort of final battle of ending communism will be happening in China. That's good, but I'd like to rather more focusing on rather than battle, we are providing sort of complete vaccine if it is a communism virus, or a complete antidote. It is countries poisoned by communism. So more like conciliatory move. Although in an initial stage, we have a traditional, policy of military economic divide and conquer, driving a wedge policy, as I described. So in that regard, this is something, we gotta do in this order: North Korea, Russia, and China. So priority, that priority is very important. So no more priority failure by the US policymakers. That's something I emphasized in the last lecture. So, that after priority, first thing comes first, military sense in terms of driving a wedge. So the relations between North Korea and China historically has been antagonistic. So of course, all in all, we need to, reconcile these relationship. But in order to contain Chinese Communist Party's threat, we need to first divide between China and North Korea. So in some way, from the US point of view, North Korea can become a sort of China's Cuba, like a kind of adversary to China in a short and midterm sense. So remember, Cuban Missile Crisis that the Soviet Union trying to do as a threat to United States. So in this way, if we change our posture toward North Korea, North Korea could be a threat to China, just like Cuba has been to the United States. So in terms of economic divide and conquer, remember, Russia would become a strong ally to, U.S. and North Korea and South Korea. Also, some kind of historical and cultural sense, as I told you. So in that regard, Chinese military influence can be, contained in East China Sea, South China Sea and neighboring countries, so that we're not trying to actually antagonizing China, in a long-term way. We're trying to make a real world peace, but we need some kind of strategy in a military and economic sense to contain Chinese military power, not to exert its power to Taiwan and South China Sea and even East China Sea, so that internal Chinese political structure will be changing, kind of focusing more on their domestic, welfare of its own people. Actually, Chinese people have been, endured a lot of, millennia of adversities, because there are lots of things happening in the Chinese continent, and Chinese sort of founding principle of Sinocentrism that kind of is antagonizing not just neighboring, but its own people, using its own people to set up the regime, Chinese regime itself. for a long time. So we need some healing power. That's why my lecture began with some kind of cultural power of Korea, its founding principle of 경천애인 and 홍익인간. That was covered in most of China in ancient time. So revere heaven and love your neighbor, your people, and living for the sake of others. That we have to regain through the regaining cultural power above the 38th parallel. That's the significance of 38th parallel I mentioned, many times in this lecture series. So here I mentioned 경천애인 and 홍익인간, the founding principle, but more fundamental kind of principle I explained, our first Q&A session. Actually, I mispronounced the first letter, 정. It's not 정. The round is one, so one bangak, but I somehow mispronounced it 정 bangak. So round is one, not 정, and that present heaven. Bang means square, that is earth, and gak means triangle, that is human, the people. So one bangak is kind of sort of symbolic principle of Korean philosophy of founding principle. So it is a one bangak, so that I want to correct. So order of ending communism from North Korea, Russia, and lastly China is we are benefiting at the end China too. So that's how we, manage to build through UN peace zone and free economic zone, surrounding East Sea and Sea of Japan. That area will be an economic boom in the near future, including, Bering Strait International Rail and Highway Project. Russia is much more interested in the Sakhalin Island. So in this way, other problems will be resolved by dissecting North Korea from Russia military help so that Russia-Ukraine war will be resolved in one way or another with some kind of compromise. So that's why I wish there will be no more priority failure by the US policymakers. And all in all, we try to kind of pinpoint China's weakness, sort of chicken's neck or Achilles heel, but it's not the purpose is to antagonize China at the end. So we need to have a harmonious interdependence. That's our goal. So that would be my answer to the first question.
Thank you so much. The second question is, if Putin is a religious man, how can America as a Christian nation work together more to bring peace in Korea and the world based on a common belief in God?
Yeah, that's very critical question. Wonderful one. You need to think very hard, how to, do it with some spiritual help. And, although the reason I mentioned Putin as a strong religious man is to drive a wedge between Russia and China, but there's more higher motive that we need to accomplish a real peace in the Korean Peninsula and the world. So America as a Christian nation has a very strong position and duty to do for the sake of human beings and its founding kind of principle of Christianity. So in this regard, I try to emphasize the role of religious leaders, not just from the Christians, but more open-minded religious leaders from around the world as a religious and cultural healers and new education for peace. So in that regard, I like to remind you the last lecture, Pastor Paula White, lecture, she very much, uh, understood the cultural aspect and historical aspects of Korea, including North Korea. So role of American people and American people's kind of failure in history. So I hope that we engage many religious leaders, but in America, I hope you guys and me try to contact Pastor Paula White and then remind her of our efforts of this UN peace zone and try to, alert her, re-engage her. I think it'll be very effective in coming next year if she is actively involved in our, efforts to making peace on the Korean Peninsula, especially UN peace zone.
All right, thank you so much. And this next question is going to be the final question of this Q&A. Now that all the content is finished, what are your final words to America or the American youth? And what is the role of the American educators and leaders for unity in the Korean Peninsula?
All right, great question. And we all need to think about that. So if I may, add my thought, and I think that America should be reawakened its role as a world leader, uh, as a harmonious interdependence role, not as a unipolar kind of dictator, sort of. Although the intention is good, we think. So we should have a clear, the leaders and the youth, but we should have a clear vision of the new world order as Americans, American youth, regardless of your, ethnic or racial background, you know, uh, your religious background. We all got together here in America, and probably we are at the best position to understand world cultures, world problems. We are generally Americans. We are generally modest, or sometimes become hubristic, but we are, uh, trying to help other people in many parts of the world, trying to resolve the conflicts. So, in that regard, we need to be more strengthened in spiritual as material, but more kind of interdependence idea, harmonious. In that regard, we got to respect the cultural powers of each nation, and then which country, Korean Peninsula, Korea should be reunited. There is something called Korean Wave, Hallyu. So the America should see from more different perspective, broader perspective, to see the why Korean culture reunify is so important in achieving real peace that America, all in all, was designed to, bring forth 300 years ago. So another aspect I want to say is I'm very thankful to you guys preparing, this lecture series and making wonderful questions. Actually, making questions is not an easy task. So I myself is, what kind of question can I make? Because in this era of artificial intelligence, as you know, that making questions are more important than answering the question. So because, artificial intelligence is now very sophisticated, even in the initial stage of just a few years. It's now more than average. The answer that AI technology bring forth. So your questioning skills are very good. So I want to applaud your questioning skills. Questioning comes from deep thinking, and deep thinking should be combined with some kind of empathy, the feeling, not just analysis and judging and nice deliberation of rationality, but such an empathy and such an creativity is involved in your making questions. So that I'd like to applaud your hard work in making questions, whoever, made these specific questions, wonderful questions. So they keep working. Otherwise, you will be defeated by AI technologies. Think about 10 years from now. We are getting old. Our memory power is getting old, and so on and so forth. And these ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, work 24 hours a day. Can you imagine the AI's, even creative skills? Yeah, it's we don't know how far the AI skill can cover even our creativity. So I think the some areas that we can be better than AI could be empathy, the feelings, empathetic kind of thinking, and so on and so forth. So that I hope that you keep questioning, and questioning skills will save our future in the world. And that there are many dangers AI will pose, you know, not long after, probably in a few decades or less. So, so I'd like to applaud your efforts of making questions. And finally, I'd like to re-emphasize the importance of setting up UN peace zone, turning from current Korean DMZ, because I believe it is an entrance door to the peaceful reunification of Korea, and then naturally coming true world peace. So we need this true peace zone, UN peace zone, before the two Koreas becoming a one nation. It'll become one nation. We don't have to worry too much about the UN peace zone as a dividing zone was. No, it is a kind of linking zone of the two Koreas, kind of harmoniously interdependent. That's the role of UN peace zone, so that we definitely need to have a UN peace zone as an entrance to the peaceful reunification of Korea, and then world peace. So I hope that you try to engage people around you and people around the politicians, U.S. Congress, people in your neighborhood, whoever could be influential to policy making uh, in the next few years. Writing letters, even making phone calls to local, congressional office, so that they'll listen to you, so that at least they know what's happening in the Korean Peninsula and the Korean DMZ, not just looking at the Korean DMZ as a line, trying to look at the immense kind of areas of conservation and rare animals and bird species, and enlighten them with these beautiful animals pictures. So yeah, let's engage our neighbors more, as well as politicians. So I think we can do it. So this lecture is the ends, but I think it's the beginning of our endeavor uh, to making, UN peace zone, Korean reunification, and world peace. I think that'll be happening very soon, even in the next few years. Thank you all, and I hope to see you again, wherever. So whenever, you know, God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. And thank you so much for our viewers, whether you stuck with us from the very beginning or joined us partway. We hope that these series were very educational and help you understand the situation in Korea and ways to resolve its problems more. So thank you again. We'll see you all next time.